a very interesting content prepared by our guest speakers. So before jumping into introducing our guest speakers, I would like to mention that for any follow-up after this webinar or any follow-up regarding PDC in general, the two organizers of this series are myself, Ziad Nami, the practice manager for MEA, and Michael Ligovic, the practice development manager for Europe. We are happy and delighted to receive your questions. So in the next slide, you will see that we have some instructions to share with you, actually, regarding this masterclass. So this masterclass will be recorded. You will be put on mute till the end of the masterclass. And if you would like to ask questions, you can type those questions in the chat box on the right side of the screen. And now I would like to introduce our guest speakers, and I will start with Rod Solar. Rod, hello, and thank you for being with us today.
Hi, thanks very much. It's great to be here.
Rod, you are the co-founder of Livesey Solar, and as a chief marketing officer for laser eye surgery, you work on doubling the size of 150 cataract and refractive surgery businesses. You have a degree in psychology, in human performance, a diploma in NLP. You are certified in marketing automation and many other marketing disciplines. And you have created a highly engaging training for the past 25 years. You are a columnist, author, certified coach, and much more. And we're really, really excited to listen to you today. So thank you again for joining us.
That's great. Yeah, I'm happy to get started.
Okay. And Marisle El Mayigda, by the time probably all our Zeiss customers know you, but for the one who are just joining us today, I would like to remind them that you are the head of the practice development consulting at Zeiss Meditech, and you have a team all over the world working on supporting Zeiss customers in practice development. So you bring an international insight because you worked and lived in many places in Brazil, in Australia, in Singapore, and in Europe, and you have assisted refractive surgeons in building and growing their practices all over the world. So, Marisle, before I give you the floor, you and Rod, I would like to ask you one question. Please, in a brief, remind us of the practice development consulting program in Zeiss that is displayed in the next slide, please.
Sure. Thank you, Ziad, for the introduction. So reminding everyone why we are here today and why we are having these master classes. At Zeiss, we have the Zeiss Practice Development Consulting Service, which is a consulting service to help our refractive surgeons to grow their business. And our program has 3 pillars. One is how to attract more patients to your practice. And this is basically about improving the external marketing of the practice and mostly on digital marketing strategies. The second part of the program is about increasing patient conversion. So we provide staff training, helping the practice to improve the performance of the staff. And the third part of the program is about increasing patient referral. And in this part, we work with the practice to improve the overall patient experience. So patients will leave positive reviews about this practice online. We'll also share their experience with friends and family and grow the referral network for the practice. So this first series of masterclasses is focused on digital marketing. So we have invited different industry experts to share with us up-to-date and current marketing strategies to grow the business. And today we have the pleasure to have Rod Solar with us. He has years of experience in this market of refractive surgery. And I'm very excited with the content that he's going to share with us today because it's definitely current and trendy and maybe even futuristic. So Rod, thank you so much for accepting the invitation to be here with us today and share these amazing strategies about the website and much more.
Yeah, great.
I'm excited too. And without any further delay, I would like to invite you, Rod, to start the master classes, and we're all ears.
Okay, super. Well, thanks everybody, and thank you for those introductions. And I'm really, really excited to actually be able to present to you all from all over the world. I'm actually based at the moment in Australia, so it's quite late for me. I'm going to try my very best to keep the energy up and just to give you guys a good sense of what we have planned. I think the number one thing that I want you to get from my presentation today is that if you create or buy a website in 2022, then it's already out of date. And I know that's a big statement, but I'm going to explain to you how far we've come and what you can do when you consider your website as a service. And I'm going to tell you all about it. But first of all, I'm just going to give you a little bit of introduction about me. Not going to take too long. Obviously, my name is Rod Solar. I'm a co-founder and fractional CMO of Lisi Solar, digital marketing certified partner. I'm also marketing refractive surgery since 2000, really, really long time, and growing clients by 2 to 5 times in about 26 countries now. So got a lot of people all over the world, and that's one of the reasons I'm over here in Australia right now for the next 3 weeks. And together, we're on a mission to transform the lives of 10,000 people with refractive surgery by 2024. And we've changed our mission recently to really get aligned with our customers' mission. We believe that our customers' mission is all about generating more transformed lives through refractive surgery. So where we can help is to create that interest for them to want to do that with you. So we've had a long-standing relationship with Zeiss for a really, really long time. We wrote a book called Grow Your Practice that was sponsored by Zeiss. It's all about presbyopic patients and how they can be a huge part of your practice in the future. And we've been working with Zeiss all over the world. You can see some of the countries and some of the interactions we've had with Zeiss over the years. Now, in today's agenda, first thing I want to talk a little bit about is my light bulb moment. Okay, so I had an epiphany recently that really, really changed the way that I think about what I do and my business, and also what my customers want from me. So I want to share a little bit about that with you. And I also want to obviously talk about what are the jobs that I've been saying that your website's not doing. So I'm going to really run through those really quickly, and then I'll introduce them one by one. But first of all, it's to qualify inquiries within 5 minutes. Within 5 minutes of the moment that they actually call, we want to qualify them. So your website can help you do that. We want to get into your inquiries on mobile phones. We want to combine all those communication streams that people use from Facebook, from Google My Business, from text messages, from WhatsApp. We want to easily book appointments online. That's the way it goes now. We want to reduce your no-show rates, and we want to relieve your staff of repetitive tasks. And your website can do all of those things. And we can obviously try to get you online reviews. And again, your website can have an instrumental part to play in helping you get our online reviews, which is how people are deciding whether or not they go with you. And importantly, we wanted to help you evaluate your business performance and predict your revenue. And that's a really important thing for any business owner, every practice owner to be able to do. So we're going to start off with a poll, first of all, before we get into the material, because we want to make this as interactive as possible. We want to make sure that we are talking about things that matter to you. So, Marsley, do you want to introduce us to the poll?
Yes. So the first question to the poll is, what is the one thing you want from today? So I have the poll now on the screen, and I'm going to leave this poll open for a couple of seconds. And I encourage you to tell us, what is the one thing you want from today's masterclass? You want to have more visits to your website? You want more people completing the self-tests in your website? You want more appointments? Or do you want more patients? Or do you want more positive online reviews? So I'm going to wait a couple of seconds to see and to get more votes. I'm very curious about this answer, Rod. I think if we had an option, I want all of that, then we would have 100% answers for that one.
Yes, but the rub is to only select one. This is the challenge in this question. If you only wanted one thing, what would it be?
And that's a tough choice, huh? What do we want from the website? Very good. So one more second, and I'm going to close and share the results with everybody. So the result is that 44% of our audience today said they want more patients. It's kind of obvious, right?
I have 2 words for you. Of course, of course. Everybody, every surgeon I've ever spoken to wants the same thing, right? And this is all about the the big epiphany that I've had, is that we as marketers tend to think that our customers want a particular thing. Sometimes we think they want traffic for their website. Sometimes we think they want a lot of leads and they want a lot of appointments. But in reality, what every surgeon and business owner tends to want is more patients at the end of the day, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
So I, like most marketers, get really excited about, if you look at this is our customer value journey. This is how we organize everything that we do in marketing. And what I get really excited about typically is these bottom stages, like aware, engage, subscribe, getting people to come to the website, getting traffic, getting people to become leads, right? And that's what most marketers really like. And I'm sure that if you have a marketing agency or a marketing consultant, they're telling you every week or every month, hey, we got this much traffic and these many leads. And they're really excited about that. And that's good because that's their business, right? That's what they do best. But what I realized is that my customers are much more interested in this area, which is appointments and patients. So after the person comes in and actually makes a call and then comes in and visits with your clinic and then decides, I want surgery, that's when surgeons all of a sudden start really paying attention. And I've had surgeons in the past tell me, I don't care about all this leads and traffic stuff. Just tell me how many patients I'm getting. And yeah, makes sense. And like most marketing agencies, they look at something else. Now, most recently, customers have always also been thinking, you know what? My reputation is obviously very important. And now with online reviews and referrals, this is also becoming very important to me too. So I think we have a little bit of a cross purpose in that most marketing agencies focus on getting traffic and inquiries. And that's the norm for our industry. And usually what happens is that they say, you know what, doctor, I'm sending you all these leads. And if you can't convert them, well, then that's your problem, right? I'm doing my job. But at the end of the day, what that creates is unhappy customers, unhappy surgeons. And they move from agency to agency and they don't get what they want. So this led me to change the paradigm on focusing on delivering converted leads. In other words, no patients, right? That's what we're aiming to deliver. And that's why we changed our mission to be all about delivering 10,000 transformed lives as patients of refractive surgery. So this was my big light bulb moment, which is like, to be honest, should have been really obvious from day one, which is I, like so many marketers and so many of you, confuse what I do with what my customers actually want, right? We confuse we do with what our customers actually want. And I think every surgeon has probably been told by a marketer at some point that that's a problem, right? So we want to be sure that we're thinking about what our customers want and what you guys want. If you're surgeons listening to this webinar, you want patients. So I'm getting a little worried, right? Like, this is my whole career that I've been working on. And I'm thinking to myself, well, my customers don't really care about traffic. Okay. My customers don't care about leads. And they also don't want to sell, right? Every customer I've ever spoken to never really wants to sell anybody that I send to them. And you worry, obviously, about wasting time with no-shows. And, a lot of complaints come like, these leads are no good. They don't show up, things like that. You want a predictable flow of patients, right? That's what you really, really want. So I've been thinking to myself, well, I'm a marketer. My whole job is to generate traffic. I'm also a trainer. And part of my job is training people how to sell. So like, regardless of how good I am at both of these things, my customers have only one thing in common. They all want predictable flow of patients. So have I been wasting my time all these last 20 years? I really hope not, right? So in the reality is that actually what people in this business want is they don't need another website. They don't need a new website even. What they actually want is they need a virtual patient coordinator, somebody who is actually going to do the hard work of taking these leads that are created by marketing and converting them into patients. And if you can have that, then you have much, much more value than better websites, better SEO, or more effective paid traffic. Because at the end of the day, that's what you all want. So I'd like to introduce you to somebody named Hottie. And Hottie, I'd like to personify this solution with kind of like the ideal website of the future, okay? And we're going to talk a little bit about future states at the moment. But, I think actually we're quite surprised that by the end of the webinar, actually the future is a lot closer than you think. But let's start with another poll. So this one is all about what happens when a visitor makes a new inquiry from your website. So Marcy, take it away.
Yes. So what happens when a visitor makes an inquiry from your website? first thing, you receive a notification to follow up with the inquiry. The inquiry information goes into the spreadsheet you can access. An inquiry nurture automation kicks off. A human being connects and qualifies the new inquiry, or I don't know. So what is the first thing that happens when a visitor makes, let's actually select all that apply. So you can choose more than one choice, more than one answer.
Yeah.
So what happens when a visitor makes an inquiry from your website? And while we are collecting the answers, Rod, for this poll, I really like the patient journey that you shared with us. And it's so true. Like sometimes we are talking to customers and they actually don't have a tracking system from leads to patients and then from patients to referrals. But if you ask them how many eye surgeries did you perform last year, they would know that from the heart, but they wouldn't know how many leads did you have or how many patient referrals did you get, which shows that really what matters for them is the patient volume.
Absolutely.
So cool. We have a very good response rate here. So let's have a look at the results. Okay, let's have a look. So majority said 69% a human being connects and qualifies the new inquiry. Okay, so someone from the staff will do that qualification, lead qualification. And then the second most popular answer was you receive a notification to follow up with the inquiry. And the second and the third is a match, 31% each. The inquiry information goes into a spreadsheet and you can nurture automation kicks off. Okay, so let's see if Rod has a solution for this question.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I'm really glad. First of all, I'm really glad to see that you're still using human beings. That's still very important. You know, we're in a technical world now, but human beings still matter. The thing is that what's really difficult these days is to get human beings to work for you and get human beings to stay on your team. And we're actually going to touch on that a little bit. But actually, let's start with what happens when a visitor makes an inquiry from your website. So,
can I share something, Rod? Can I just share something that happened, because I think it matches very much this question here that you have. We have run some campaigns, and as you said before, like marketing agencies, they will generate the leads and they will pass these leads to the customers. But then one very frequent feedback that we get from our customers is that by the time my staff called the patient back, or by the time someone in my clinic connected to qualify that inquiry, the patient already forgot, or the patient was not a hot lead anymore. Because that moment, it can take 24 hours or it can take 2 days from that moment of the lead attraction to the qualifying by a staff, or someone in the staff to do that lead qualification.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, you notice in that question, we could have asked, a human being responds to the inquiry within 5 minutes. We could have asked, a human being responds to the inquiry within 24 hours. We didn't ask that, but we're going to get into some of that information pretty soon. But that makes all the difference. It's when do you respond? Because as you know, just like anybody who's a customer looking for something, you pretty much get frustrated when somebody doesn't respond to your inquiry. And what do? The first thing you do is you move on to the next, because time is money and everybody wants to move on with their lives, and nobody has patience these days. One of my team members said that millennials today have the attention span of a teaspoon. And I thought that's really, really smart. That's good. I like that. And fair enough. We got to win their attention, right? So here's the thing. Clinic staff aren't really good at handling new inquiries, and that's not a challenge on them. It's just that they got so much to do. And really, in reality, they usually what you're doing is you're bringing on clinic staff, and you didn't hire them to bring on people to handle new inquiries or pick up the phone. You brought them on to do other things, and usually they're doing many other things, like watching the front desk or doing filing, or keeping up the admin on patient records. And you're expecting them to handle new inquiries and answer the phone, but they're not really good at that. In my experience, they're also not good at the sales conversation. So actually having a proper sales conversation with somebody on the phone can be a little bit intimidating for a lot of these folks, especially since they were never hired to be salespeople and they don't really want to sell. They don't want to be pushy, and all these things are challenging to them. And they're also not really good at following up with inquiries. And I've noticed many times, for example, an inquiry will come, you might try to reach them, you don't get in touch because, they're not there anymore. And then that's it. No one follows up 2 days, 3 days later, or anytime. And that's a big challenge. And so I've wondered why this is. And in reality, it's because so many doctors are so used to getting warm referrals that they don't hire salespeople, right? Their systems are built for people who just walk into their practice and end up there because they've been referred by other patients or optometrists or other doctors. So they don't hire salespeople. They don't create operational systems for sales. And then when you get cold leads, not warm referrals, but cold leads, you can't convert them into appointments. And that's the number one reason people stop marketing is they say, you know what, I'm not seeing the value here, right? I'm getting these people to call, but I'm not seeing the value for my money. And even though everybody in the clinic was doing everything they could to the best of their ability, right? So this is a real challenge. And one of the things that we've found too is these numbers will really frighten a few people out there. So trigger warning. But the point being is that if you wait longer than 5 minutes to respond to an inquiry, you've pretty much lost the battle right there, because this was a study done by MIT, which showed how many more leads converted and qualified based on the time that you got back to them. And it's a huge distinction, okay? It's a huge difference. And really what you can see here is that after 5 minutes pass, the odds of connecting and qualifying an inquiry drop by 80%. And responding to leads within the first minute increases conversions by 391%. So, you could hire me for sales training and I would spend 8 hours teaching you how to sell. But you know what? I could probably spend 5 minutes just telling you to pick up the phone within the first minute or the first 5 minutes. And that would completely change your conversion rate, and get in touch with people, really connect with people right from the onset and get them on the bus. And so, the other shocking stat, and this is, by the way, SMB might not be totally clear to everybody. That's a small to medium-sized business. 62% of calls are unanswered by small to medium-sized businesses. What a terrible waste. What a terrible waste of marketing money. What a terrible waste of opportunity for the business. And certainly, I think marketers are probably pulling their hair out thinking, my goodness, I can send you leads all day long, but what are you going to do with them, right? So this is a problem.
I have a question there. You're talking about calls and responding to calls. Can a website do that? Can the website answer this?
Well, you just reminded me. We're talking about websites.
Yes, because I'm like, okay, can the website replace then this answering inquiries?
So that's the thing. That's what absolutely. That's what I'm going to get to. If you could get your website to respond to calls that you missed, or potentially to chats within 5 minutes, and you didn't even need to have a person do it, how interesting would that be, right? So that's what we're going to actually talk about pretty soon. So really, before we get there, I just want to put the context of how healthcare relates to everything else. So in healthcare, we see about a 2 hour and 5 minute turnaround on most inquiries. Okay, and it's much better than today, but it's obviously still too long. And that compares to telecom, which is 16 minutes. Small size companies, which is 1 to 300 people, 48 minutes. Medium sized companies, 300 to 2,500 people, is about an hour and 38 minutes. And larger size companies is about an hour and 28 minutes. So here's the question: what makes healthcare unique? Why is it different? And again, it's all the reasons I mentioned before. Is they're used to getting referrals, right? And referrals are happy to wait, right? If you call them 2 days later, they're still going to be around because, hey, this doctor said you were the best, so I'm going to wait for you. But they're used to getting referrals from insurance, from doctors, from word of mouth. And many businesses know that they need to consider sales and marketing before they even start the practice, before they start the business. But doctors, on the other hand, are what I call accidental entrepreneurs, accidental business owners. They get into practice, right? And they start building a business, and then they realize, my goodness, I have to manage this business like a real business. And that's really challenging because they never learned how to do that. And so they weren't really prepared. And that's what I'm hoping to fix. And so let's start out with this hypothetical job interview. Okay, so obviously, as a doctor, you have a job that needs to be done, right? And this is exactly your question, right? So you have a job. How about that? So you have a job that needs to be done, and let's say you need somebody to do it. So fortunately, okay, I want you to just kind of play along with me. Is that you have a new applicant for a job, okay? And remember Hattie, we introduced her a second ago. So here's your first question, right? Hey Hattie, can you respond and qualify my new inquiries in 5 minutes or less? Can you do that? Because I have staff, but they're busy and they can't do that every day. Well, Hattie would say, if we had an ideal website happening here, we'd say, yeah, absolutely. I'm a lead, speed to lead specialist. When I receive, a web chat on your on the website, I can start a two-way SMS. So you know how when you type in a web chat and then sometimes the operator says, we'll be back in 6 hours. You know that's not going to work out, right? So what could be done is that this technology could then send a response, not to the web chat, but rather to the customer's SMS. And if it did that, then you're able to get into a position where the customer can say, okay, I'm done with the website now. I'm going on the bus or, go walk the dog, but they're actually interacting with you on the SMS. And now you're in their phone. Oh. And that's much more
so
valuable,
it's not
right?
on the chat of the website anymore. The communication shifts to SMS.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it starts on the website and then moves to SMS, and that's golden because, as you can imagine, web chat's great, and when people are there, but in reality, again, attention span is low, and people want to move on. And if you can stay inside their mobile phone, that's where you want to be. Then they can send an SMS message back to every missed call. So if the call is missed, the system could potentially then identify that the call is missed, and then sends an SMS, hey, we missed your call. Really sorry about that. Here's the link to the number. Now we're available through you. Or it could send potentially a live call. So it could bridge a live call. And then once the inquiry picks up the phone to the live call, then it rings your office and the person on the office says, hey, I'm here, right? So it connects the people together. And that just gives an opportunity to really create this automatic follow-up that so many clinics are really lacking because they just don't have the staff and personnel and time to do this. So that's one thing that we could be looking forward to for a website to be able to do this in the future, which would be amazing. So
that's amazing. Yeah.
I want to start.
The virtual assistant is in the mobile of the patient.
Exactly. So as opposed to just simply getting staying on the website and hoping that you remain, you're in the patient's mobile, and that's a great place to be. We all know that every time we receive a text, we're going to look at it, right?
Yeah.
This is very different from email and certainly far, far different from web chat. But we have another poll about texting. So let's get into this one.
So let's get to this poll. As a customer, would you rather call or text? A message, quick question to a company. So first answer, call a company, and second, send a company a text message. So let's see what people say, what they prefer, how they prefer to communicate with the company, to have a phone call or to have a text message. I wish I could answer here because I have a clear preference here how I want to communicate with service providers. Yeah.
I think it'll also depend a lot on the age of the attendees. We don't exactly know how old everybody is, obviously, but I have a feeling that preference would change depending on the age.
Yeah, that's true. So we have a really good response rate. So I'm going to close the poll and I'm going to share the answers with everybody. So the answer is send the company a text message. 70% of the audience have a preference for text messages.
Of course. Absolutely. And that is, that's exactly what I expected to see and I hope to see, because actually that tells me I'm normal, because when I want to interact with a business, I really don't, I'm far from being a millennial, but at the same time, I don't want to waste time. Right. And I don't want to get involved in a hold message, and I don't want to get involved with, and if I'm asking a quick question that requires information I have to recollect later, I want to see it on my mobile, right? I want to see the information that I need to reference. Like say they give me an address. I'm not going to remember that address. I want that address in my phone, right? So things like that is why so many young people today are preferring to send text to businesses. And so I want to introduce you to the concept that it's not my concept. I didn't come up with a name. I heard it somebody else say the term patient 2.0, and it really triggered me. And it's like, wow, you know what? That's exactly who we're dealing with. It's patient 2.0. It's a different type of patient who's pretty much on their mobile all the time. And most of the time, they only have phone calls with very select people. Sometimes they don't even want to call their friends. They want to stay on text. And so that's one of the things. And actually, one of the other things too that actually is really interesting is that most people don't know this. Here's a really interesting tip: is that on your Google My Business listing, which is now called Google Business Profile, you actually have a button that you can initiate. If you go into the settings, you can initiate to text the business, right? Mm-hmm. So you have the website, you have the call, the little phone to call the business, you have the directions and things like that, but you can initiate a new button that says text the business. Now, many businesses don't want to turn this on because, how are they going to receive text? Are they going to get Susie, who's in accounting, to use her mobile, right? It just doesn't make sense. So they're not there yet, but patient 2.0 is definitely wanting to actually text. So here's the thing, right? Most people, they don't like phone calls, right? They're over it. They don't want to, they don't want to call businesses. They hardly even want to call their friends. They don't want to waste their time, and they want to find a record of their conversation. So the other thing too is I find that there's an anxiety around phone calls too. Is like a lot of my millennial team members, it's just like the last thing they want to do is phone anybody, because it just creates this anxiety of interacting with people that they're more used to actually dealing in text. Now, this is another reason why SMS is so powerful. The actual open rate for an SMS is 98%. And that's amazing because, email in comparison is about 20%. If you're getting above 20% on your open rates, then you're doing really well. Most companies, healthcare is doing well there, but most companies actually get much less. The thing about most emails is that many of them go to spam. And let me ask you this: have you ever received have you ever got a spam SMS in your spam folder? Of course not, because there is no spam folder, right? Every single SMS you get, you're going to get, and you're probably going to look at that SMS. And that's very different from your email. I mean, I don't know about you, but I check my email maybe once a day. And however, if I get a text, even during this webinar, if I get a text, I probably look at it.
Yes. So yeah, I check my personal email very rarely, just when I know I'm about to receive something important.
Exactly, yeah. So 50% of email ends up in spam. And the average click-through rate on SMS is 19%, which, that's what it's about. It's about getting action from the SMS, from the message, whereas the average email click-through rate is 3.2%. So there's a real need for businesses to get really, really clear about using SMS, because that is where people want to be. And just so you know, everybody has their phone with them all the time. And this applies to pretty much every country and also almost every age demographic. I know I kind of joked earlier that it really depends on how old you are. But people in their 60s and 70s, they're on SMS as well, and on WhatsApp and all of that. So, you probably communicate with family members the same way who are in that age group, and they love it, right? So, yeah, so SMS is here to stay, and we definitely want to look at that. So, let's go back to this hypothetical job interview, right? So if the doctor who, wants to improve their practice, they might ask Hottie, hey, can you communicate the way my customers actually want to communicate? And, the website of the future would turn around and say, you know what, that's not a problem. I can do that. I can send the auto response to a web chat. I can move the conversation into SMS, like we said. I can engage the conversation using natural language understanding, which is, you've heard of AI. So Google now has a protocol called that's fueled by natural language understanding, which actually makes a lot of sense. I think maybe 2 years ago, you might have seen that demonstration where Google used an AI to make a booking with a hairdresser, like an actual live booking using voice. Now, we're not using voice right now, but the SMS is really good in terms of, utilizing NLU to be able to converse with somebody, and it actually makes sense. And here's what's really cool too, is that it can alert your team to take over inquiries in the SMS from their desktop. So right now, for example, if you were to ask a business, you need to answer text, they'd probably actually get Mary, who's on the front desk, hey, could you put up your mobile number, and use that, and then you can respond to text messages? That's no good, right? Because then it ends up in a staff member's mobile. That's crazy, right? What you need to do is you need to have all of these SMSs going to the same place and people responding from their desktops. It's a lot quicker, and actually it creates a record of the conversation, because you really want that record for later. Because if they talk to Mary 2 hours ago and then they're talking to to Joan 2 hours later, then is Joan going to have to go look for that mobile number? And what if Joan's actually remote? Like there's lots of issues with this approach that we're currently taking. So yeah.
Rod, let me see if I'm following you, if I'm understanding, and maybe also the audience could be confused. So in this case here, Hottie, which is this virtual assistant, would enable the website to answer the inquiries, but at the same time to transfer the inquiry either to an SMS or to a phone call for an actual staff member of the practice to answer that. So it's basically like making that patient journey smooth from the website to the next step.
Exactly.
Without a delay.
Exactly. So if earlier we talked about how the person gets on web chat, or maybe they send a form, or maybe they even make a phone call that is missed. Well, the SMS can go into their mobile, and when they respond, that response then goes into your staff's computer.
Okay.
And then anybody who has access to that computer network can get in there and respond to the SMS. And
okay, then it goes from a virtual assistant to a real assistant.
Exactly. So it's always nice to be able to, especially during business hours, if people are available, to be able to pass on, right? It's called a passover. And if that is available and necessary and useful, then that system will be able to do that. And that's especially useful when we can only go so far with NLU, right? Like computers are great, but they're not perfect. Human beings still have a place. And so if we want to get involved in a more deep conversation, then it's great to be able to pass over to a staff member when they're available. Yeah. So we're going to get into another poll, which is, how would you like to receive messages from potential surgical patients?
Yeah. So how would you like to receive these messages? First choice is you prefer a form on your website, a social media message, a WhatsApp or SMS, phone calls, or any of the above. In this case here, you can choose more than one answer. So let's see what is the preference of you as a practice owner, or as a surgeon, or as a practice manager. How would you like to receive messages from potential surgical patients? Okay, we have very good response rate. So I'm going to give another 5 seconds, and I am going to close the poll. Really good. Okay, let's have a look at the answers.
Yes.
Is that what you expected, Rod?
Well, I'm happy for two reasons. Number one, either people are really, really excited about WhatsApp and SMS, or they chose the answer that I really wanted to see, which is any of the above. Because I think what you want to think about, right, is that really we live in this omni-channel world, and we're not going to control how people want to talk to us, right? And the reality is that the best answer is really any of the above, because these are potential patients and they want to give you money. And if somebody connects with me over Instagram DM and they want to give me money, I'll be like, yeah, I'll talk to you. If they want to do a Facebook Messenger and they want to give me money, I'll be like, yeah, no problem, right? So that's the really good answer. But the challenge is, of course, despite the fact that everybody wants to communicate their way, and they might use different channels before and after, it gets really, really confusing. The problem, however, is that there's too many channels and conversations get lost. And I'm not sure if you've ever been in a situation where you've actually looked on your phone and you realize many, many weeks go by and you notice a little one in front of your DM for Instagram, and you're like, oh, I never saw that. And then you open it up and you realize, oh, 2 weeks later, it's like, oh, somebody messaged me 2 weeks ago, right? Like that's never going to work. Yet we're advertising on Instagram. We're posting on Instagram. We're hoping people, engage with us on Instagram, but we're missing all the messages, right? Unless you have somebody checking them reliably, right? And then even when you do get that message, you can't necessarily combine that into the conversation stream for all the other messages of the patient.
Yeah, I think you touched on a very important point there, Rod, because a lot of practices, for example, or even businesses, they will do Instagram ads, which is in the Instagram platform, but then they expect the customer to move platforms to connect with them, like either to fill a form or to make a phone call. And it's not like a smooth experience if you are already advertising on Instagram. It would be much better if we could just send a message via Instagram.
Yeah. Just even today, I'm here in Australia, and one of my customers in Australia received, because I'm in the right time zone, I see the Facebook messages come in, and I saw a Facebook message come in this morning, and it said, "Hey, I tried to reach you guys 2 days ago. I was wondering if I could bring my wife in and get a discount for her, right? Because I had surgery, 2 months ago," and no response. And I kind of watched it during the day, throughout the day. I did my work, and then later on, I came back to it, and I realized it still hasn't been responded to because they sent another message, and it still hadn't been responded to. So regardless of what the customer says, what the practice says, I want them to respond to the message. So I have to actually copy that message and send it to that customer's email, because that's what they check, right? So it's like, no, that disconnect cannot happen. You've got to be on top of those things. And so otherwise, like this customer, maybe they'd be happy to go ahead and bring their wife over without the discount, or with the discount, whatever your practice wants to do. It's a customer who wants to give you money. And the last thing you want to do is ignore that DM or ignore that Facebook message just because you're not on that platform at the moment. So, and it's really hard being on all these platforms. I get it, right? And like that's why a surgeon would definitely, be entitled to ask, can you combine all of these communication streams into one? How cool would that be? And the reality is that we have the technology to be able to do this, right? So yeah, absolutely. So, Hottie, for example, the website of the future could combine all of these channels into one, and then have your staff respond in one place. And they can message them back, they could call them back, they could record and send a video back, right? If that's what they want to do, or they can send a voicemail drop. So what a voicemail drop is the system, you can use the system to call the person. It doesn't ring on their phone, but it leaves a little voicemail. So then the next time somebody actually, so that, it can be sent at any time of the day. But next time somebody looks at their phone and says, "Oh, I've got a voicemail," they open it up. They're going to listen to it, right? They might otherwise actually, like if they're getting a phone call, they might go, "Oh no, I don't know this number, I'm not going to answer." But most people will listen to the voicemail, right? You've done this, right?
I can also message on WhatsApp, right?
Yeah, you can do that too. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that's the thing. It's like you want to have this situation where you can combine these streams, have them in one conversation flow, and then be able to respond appropriately from that conversation flow. And again, whether it's from DM on Instagram, whether it's on Facebook Messenger, whether it's from WhatsApp, email, whatever it is, it should be in that one stream, right? So another question.
So what is the question now? How did you book your last flight? This one will be very easy. I completed a form and waited for someone to call me back. I called the airline or travel agent and booked on the phone, or I booked online. So how did you book your last flight?
You're right, actually. This is not a trick question. It looks easy, and it is easy.
This one is really easy, yeah.
But it should really, hit home a point that I really want to make.
Yes.
So hopefully we get the right answer here.
And now summer is coming. Everybody's booking flights. Everyone is excited to take vacation. So let's see. We have a lot of responses on this one. So I'm already going to close and share the answers.
Of course. Of course. 95% of people want to book online. Of course, right? So, why? We don't have to get into the reasons. We all know. We all know why we want it. So yeah, that's the reality. And the thing is that like patient 2.0 doesn't want to call a business or a practice anymore to book an appointment, right? They want to book online. And, it's interesting. Many of my clients, I'm not sure if you recall, but like, when the pandemic first started, I was one of the first people to say, "Oh my God, online bookings, we got to do this," right? And, not to be confused with virtual appointments, which is also important, but online booking had to begin at that point because, we needed to make things easy for people to schedule these Zoom calls and things like that. And now these days, my customers who are utilizing online booking are getting 90% of their appointments booked online from patients. That is amazing. Wow. Because these aren't even phone calls that are taking place in between. they're actually making these bookings online without needing to actually make any phone calls. Nobody has to answer the call. Nobody has to spend time, discussing things with a patient. If you want to send them a form afterwards to get more information, that's fine. But these people are booking in. And, I just want you to think about that. Like, imagine how much time that would save your staff. And I've actually found that some of my customers who are starting up with online booking are actually able not to necessarily need to hire new employees as fast as they otherwise would, because they're utilizing online booking. So that's a huge savings for them. And especially in this climate where it's actually really hard to find people. And the last thing you want to do is hire people quickly. What you want to do is hold out for the right ones, right? And so that's the thing, is like online booking really allows you to do that, because it reduces the amount of effort required to answer all these phone calls.
And it's not just about hiring, it's also the time for training this new person. Which could take about 3 to 6 months just to get that person like sharp on how to answer all these questions and really be good at converting these inquiries into appointments.
Exactly right. The other thing too is like I also want people to think not just about initial inquiries, but also post-ops. I mean, every single patient is going to generate maybe 2, 3 potential post-op appointments. And a lot of that is back and forth. And, people are reticent to actually make post-op appointments because they're not seen as critical as the previous appointments. And I even had this experience recently. I had laser eye surgery about, I'm still getting the request to get annual appointment checkups, and I love it because, it's nice to go in there. I had done maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, but, I got a request to actually book the appointment, and I'm like, it was an email. It was like, when are you free? And I'm like, when am I free? Like, when are you free? Like, when is this? How are we going to do this? We're going to send 4 emails between each other. So I just got fed up and I just said, you know what? Here's my online booking. And I sent them the online booking link to book me. And so that they could book me online. And that way I knew when I'd actually be able to go down to the appointment, because that actually worked with my diary. And they actually clicked the link and booked me online. So yeah. But obviously not every patient's going to be doing that, right? I just do that because that's how I run my life. But yeah, I mean, that's that's how much I hate this email back and forth and phones that actually don't get answered and leave messages and back and forth, and waiting to actually book basic post-op appointments. It just doesn't make any sense. So yeah, it's a huge time saving set. So obviously a surgeon would be asking, hey Hottie, as to my website of the future, my virtual assistant, can you help my patients book online? And the reality is, this is kind of easy, right? I mean, we've been doing this for a while now. But what's really nice is that this could be totally done through the website and actually go into the same system that is recording all of these other inquiries, right? So the other thing too is like, a lot of people don't realize that they can actually charge fees on online booking, right? Because they worry a lot of times like, oh, somebody's going to actually fill up my appointments and they're not going to show up. You can charge fees, and you can also charge in such a way where you only bill if they don't show up. I know that's not always a nice thing to do, but it protects you. These days in London at least, sometimes I have to give my credit card just to make a reservation. And with COVID too, actually with the pandemic, restaurants have been so tight on reservations that they actually demand this, and the people are becoming much more used to giving their credit card. And sticking with their reservations because they don't want to get charged, right? So this could totally apply for clinics. And yeah, you can offer easy ways to cancel and rearrange bookings online as well. You can remind your staff. That's the other thing too, is get some pushback sometimes from surgeons who say, I don't want to have online booking because I run a totally different EMR, a different calendar, and these two systems might not talk. Well, what you can do is you can set up a situation where you get an online booking, and then a staff member could confirm that booking with the patient by SMS or whatever, and then you can get that appointment confirmed and then put into your EMR calendar. So that's a nice way of kind of getting past this 2 systems unable to talk to each other, which often happens in refractive surgery and eye surgery in general. And then, yeah, you can send SMS and email confirmations and follow-up messages to reduce no-shows. I would say that that's one of the main reasons why people are worried about online booking, is to reduce no-shows. So I think it's really, really important to talk a little bit about that. And that's actually the subject of the next poll.
What is your appointment no-show rate? 1 to 10%, 11 to 20%, 21 to 30%, 31% or more, or you don't know? So what is your appointment no-show rate? Do you track your appointment no-show rate?
I think this will be fascinating. I want people to also consider, it's not in the question, but I want you to consider post-ops and initials, right? So not just initials, post-op and initials, because when you get into post-ops, it's a different story. You got, personally, from my experiences in clinics, you get a lot more no-shows in post-ops.
Yeah, so especially if everything is fine with the patient, right? The patient will not wanting to come because everything is correct. So, okay, so we have a good response rate. So I'm going to close the poll and share with everyone. So majority has pretty low no-show rate, between 1 and 10%.
Really good.
And yeah, 20% between 11 and 20, 20% between 21 and 30, and 20% they don't know what is the no-show rate.
Yeah, so that's great. No, that's a really, really encouraging stat, and this is something we definitely want to ensure that we maintain a really, really no-show rate. In fact, I want to put that into perspective. Now, this is not for refractive surgery and eye surgery at all, but there's a study that was done, and I've linked to it in the resources underneath there. 12 to 50% is the norm. That's a really, really wide range, and it covers all sorts of specialties. So you just have to put things into context. And what I did is I just took 12% as an option here. When I looked at the average appointment, let's say it's worth $300, and I just used a US dollar rate. And then, let's say, the RSA said, there were 5 million eyes done in 2021. And that, I did the math, and that's basically 300,000 no-shows, if you think about the number of appointments that are involved. And, just imagine the value of saving even 10% of missed appointments. Because even though, post-ops, you're absolutely right. People are often kind of like, well, hey, if they didn't make it, they didn't make it. But that's time in your diary that you could be using for other things. And yeah, it's a huge, huge problem for some practices. And I saw some practices in the poll there between 21 and 30%. So this would really, really help them as well. So what can you do, right? Hey, Hottie, can you help me reduce no-show rates? And yeah, absolutely. Hottie can do things like send an SMS and email confirmations. And again, there's no need for a human to be involved. And that same study that I shared earlier, that link to that study, showed that this alone can significantly reduce no-show rates dramatically. And people kind of overlook it, but it really is valuable. The other thing that this can do is it can send a custom reminder with a voicemail drop. So if you send a voicemail drop, the way I explained it earlier, that the phone doesn't ring, but you just get a voicemail, and it's actually, if it's recorded by somebody in the clinic, right, then it feels so much more real that the person's actually waiting for them and, expect it to show up. And the nice thing about this is you can record one voicemail and send it to all your patients, right? Which really reduces the amount of time that you would otherwise spend having to make phone calls manually to remind people about their appointments. And it still delivers that personal experience that actually comes from the practice. And it's totally available. And then, I can send SMS and email to no-shows after they've not showed up, and then offer online booking to rebook. So it just, again, reduces the repetitive tasks that are necessary in a clinic. Make sense?
Totally. And Rod, I have a question for you. So what do you think of practices that still nowadays they don't offer the online scheduling in their website?
What do I think about why or what?
Yes, why some practices are not doing it, or is it like a must-have option to offer this online scheduling on the website?
Well, I think the airline ticket booking question answers that very well, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's for a similar amount of money, for an overseas flight, right? Then people are happy to online book. And the practices I've spoken to, often it's inertia. They just decide, they think if it isn't broken, why fix it? But in reality, they're losing a lot of potential value because of it. Mm-hmm. So inertia is one of the reasons. Another reason is this challenge between getting one EMR system to connect to another system that most people are using. So a lot of people are using Calendly, because the Calendly connects to Google and it connects to Outlook, and that's great. But what if the practice isn't on Google and Outlook, right? So creates a challenge, and I've run into this challenge myself because I'm a big fan of Calendly, and I've been promoting it for many years now. But the reality is that sometimes Calendly doesn't necessarily connect and speak with other things, and so it'll all depend in terms of what kind of EMR is being used, but the APIs available by some platforms in the future will definitely have a lot more capability to speak to each other in such a way where there's less friction and less double entering and less manual confirmation.
So the challenge would be mostly on the technology. Like,
I think so.
If the customer has not been on board yet with that online scheduling, because they have not found the right technology to do that.
Yeah, there's also the issue of, some of them deciding, hey, I'm going to book out a little portion of my diary, just that, because I know I'm going to keep that free. But what they do in that case is they give, like, say, for example, 1 day only available for online booking. But I mean, come on, patients these days, they just want total flexibility. And so what happens is almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. They offer little availability and then they don't get the bookings and they go, oh, this online booking stuff doesn't work. Right? But in reality, it was the availability that didn't work. So I think you got to kind of go all in on this. And look, it's such a mission critical thing. I mean, imagine an airline not offering online booking today. They'd be out of business. So, yeah. No, it is the future, and all of your competitors would be doing it. So it's time to get on this ASAP if you're not on it yet. Next poll.
Next poll is, what is your biggest challenge right now? So your biggest challenge is with marketing, which means getting inquiries. It is sales, turning inquiries into appointments. Or is it operations, processing patient admin data or patient admin, or clinical, delivering good medical outcomes? So what is your biggest challenge right now in your practice? Marketing, sales, operations, or clinical?
Really interested to see this one.
Yes, and this is a very good question.
Yeah.
Very good question. What is the challenge? A lot of practices actually will not identify themselves as sales. They actually.
True.
So they might even not. Yeah, let's see what they will choose. 2 more seconds, and then I'm going to close the poll. Okay, and let's have a look at the answers.
Oh.
So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that surprises me. That really surprises me because, from my understanding, with everybody is quite clear that the pandemic, in fact, had a silver lining for refractive surgery practices. There's actually been greater growth in the last year than we've ever seen. Well, for a really long time after a decade of flat line. That's actually surprising me, and I wasn't prepared for that. But actually, it's very interesting. I expected, my hypothesis, truthfully, was that clinical would be 0%. I knew that answer was going to come, and that operations would be actually much higher than it's showing. So that's interesting. That's very interesting. But maybe the other thing too to consider is that maybe some of the people who are actually attending this webinar are a bit of a self-selected group who are interested in marketing to a degree because they're attending. Yeah, so that's a possibility. So it'd be interesting to ask more broader set of people. But yeah, I think look, if your challenge was sales or admin, I think it's really, really clear that clinics are shorthanded. And this is one of the things that I'm noticing a lot is that people are really finding it hard to find good people. That includes finding good marketers, let's be honest. It's harder to keep them, right? And clinic teams are run off their feet. They're busy. They're super busy. And as a result, the service suffers when, people are super busy and you get negative reviews. And everybody hates negative reviews, right? Nobody likes to see that. And so I think it's important to consider that in as you build a practice, as you get busier, and if marketing is one of the things that you're focusing on, you are going to get busier if you're doing it well. And often what happens is that volume increases, but the staff headcount doesn't necessarily increase to keep pace for various reasons that I've already discussed. So you want to really prevent people from being overwhelmed. And one of the things that you can do is remove drudgery from their jobs, right? Nobody wants to do boring things. They want to have things where they have some interest in and some mastery and some autonomy. And so maybe one of the questions that you would ask is, hey, Hottie, website of the future, virtual assistant, can you help free my staff from repetitive tasks? And the reality is yes. I can do a lot of those things. For example, it can build you a database. So no more copying and pasting, I know we love spreadsheets, but you get an email and then you have to put it into a spreadsheet. There's copying and pasting and all that. That can be terribly annoying. Send follow-up messages. It can qualify your inquiries, like I said, on your behalf. It can reactivate dormant inquiries. So every 3 months, for example, or any timeline of your choosing, it could just find all the people that have abandoned and then respond, send them a message and saying, hey, maybe it's three months since you took our self-test. Are you still interested? And attempt to actually re-engage them in the process again automatically until such time that they show interest, and then you can have a phone call. And it can do it automatically. It can send arrivals, people who arrive at the clinic and can send them an electronic form. And so that electronic form, they can actually fill in their details. Or it could even send them, an hour in advance or 2 hours in advance, so they fill it out at home. And then that reduces all of this transcription that's required from paper forms to the database, right? And it can send appointment reminders like we've discussed, and it can book post-op appointments online. Like I said, that's a huge time sink. And it can reply to FAQs using natural language understanding. I mean, how many times has a clinic received the question, where do I find parking? Or what are are you open on the Saturday? Or are you open this Easter Monday? Things like that. It's like the same questions again and again and again. Even medical questions, that are repeated. How can I get drops? These basic questions that happen again and again and again. Wouldn't it be lovely if something could actually answer these things for you? And it can, So the technology has arrived and it's here, and you can make use of it. And it's just a question of putting it all together in one place. Okay, so we have, I think, maybe one more poll. I hope it's one more poll. We'll see. Let's go for it.
So, in your opinion, what is the most trustworthy type of marketing? Is it radio ads, paid ads on Google, paid ads on Facebook and Instagram, SEO results, or online reviews? So, if you are a consumer, what would you trust the most? I think that's the question. What's the most trustworthy type of marketing?
Yeah.
Would you trust more radio ads or paid ads on Google or paid ads on Facebook, Instagram, or finding the website of the practice or of the provider on the first page of Google results, or reading a positive online review about this place and about their services? So what would you trust more? I will leave it for another 2 seconds, and then I'm going to close the poll. We have very good response rate, and let's see what is the result.
I knew it.
So majority answered online reviews. 65% would trust more than online reviews.
I'm so glad.
That is what I expected. Is what you expected, Rod?
Absolutely. I'm really, really glad that clinics and surgeons and owners are really, really getting this. It's so true. I mean, 93% of millennials have made a purchase based on a recommendation from friends and family. 89% of millennials trust these recommendations more than they do the claims of the brand. Patient 2.0, the trust online reviews more than anything else. And the problem, of course, is getting your staff to get reviews. And
that's so true.
Try as they might, they feel embarrassed, they run out of time, they forget, they're busy, so many reasons. There's every single reason under the sun to not get reviews, but reviews are so important. So most clinics are unfortunately just relying on people just being nice and sharing those reviews online. And I think you can be a lot more proactive. So
a lot of staff members, when I visit practices and I tell them the importance of online reviews, they share with me that they feel shy. They feel shy to approach the patient and ask for the review. They know that the reviews are very important, but they feel like, oh, I don't know what's the right moment to ask for the review. I also feel very shy to ask for the review. And I find that people that are very happy with the service, it has to be extremely beyond expectation for them to leave a review from their own will. But people that are unhappy are more likely to leave the review because they want to be heard and they want to show their experience. So It is hard to collect these reviews from the patients that had the positive experience.
Exactly right. I mean, we're lucky to be in a business where most people are really happy. And
Yes.
so, if we can get more people reviewing, just the math itself, that compared to the number of people who are either legitimately or illegitimately unhappy, compared to that number, you're going to drown out those negative reviews just simply by asking a lot of people to review. So, Hottie can help with that. So the technology is available now that after every patient encounter, and different people have different views on this. Should I ask for a review after, the phone call? Should I ask for a review after the initial assessment? Should I ask for a review at the post-op? A lot of people have different versions and views on this, and I don't want to get into that so much. I believe that if you're actually asking somebody to review your service, then it doesn't matter what you've done as long as you've delivered service. How did I do today? So I think that's feedback, and that's how I see reviews. So, but anyway, you can ask them to give an online review, and the technology can do that to every single patient. Doesn't matter whether you remember or forget or you're shy. It just does it on your behalf. It can also remind your staff to respond to online reviews, because that's also super important. Not only for the negative reviews, which is massively important because you're able to show your customer service ability, but also for the positive reviews to show that somebody's listening and somebody is taking these reviews seriously and really, really rewarding people for leaving a review. And that encourages more reviews. So if your staff is reminded very easily when a review comes in to respond to that review, again, in that same system, it really, really helps. And then importantly, if they need to dispute a spam negative review, they can do that from the system as well. So again, you don't have to chase at Google, look it up, figure out where to go. If you actually have that link available really easily in the same place, then the team can just easily go in and dispute a review that they know is fraudulent. So that can be also very helpful. Make sense?
Totally. I think that new feature there to dispute the negative review, it's very useful because clinics, they have a challenge or difficulty on how to manage these negative reviews. And even some clinics told me like they before, now everybody is really open to receive online reviews, but a couple of years back, they didn't want to leave the platforms open because they were scared they could get negative reviews and not know how to handle that. Yeah. So if virtual assistant can help with that, like having an alert, like you receive the negative review and how to answer that in a professional way, I think that's excellent.
Exactly. Okay, this is definitely the last poll. I guarantee it.
Oh, yeah, this is the last one. We promise you that.
Hey, we wanted to keep it interactive.
How well does your sales and marketing work to get your patients? Wow, that's a very tough question. I think people will not maybe be completely honest here, but of course, all the answers are anonymous, okay? I want to remind everybody about that. So poor, okay, good, but could be better. Do you see areas for improvement there, or they are working excellent and no worries here? Or honestly, you don't know. So I think here it's also about having KPIs, right, to track this, because it's very relative to say poor or good. But yeah, I will leave it another 5 seconds. We already have a lot of answers. And so you think your staff, sales and marketing is doing a poor job, an okay job, a good job, but you see areas for improvement. It could be better. They're excellent and there's no worries here, or honestly, you don't know because you're not tracking. Okay, let's have a look at the answers.
Yeah.
Very good results.
Yeah, really good, really good. I'm really, really happy to see that, because as a marketer, it's really, really important for me to feel like, people are out there doing a good job, and they see the value in sales and marketing work, and they feel like it's good. But at the same time, I also appreciate the fact that, you wouldn't be at this webinar if you didn't think you could improve, right? You kind of want to be here, right? So, and I'm so glad that there's some people who are saying excellent, right? Then that's amazing. Then I have to ask you, why are you here? We want.
I think there's always room for improvement.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, I think that, often what I've found as a marketer for 20 years is that, predictable revenue really, really helps you plan and avoid surprises. And I think that's often what most of my customers really want is that they want to have predictable revenue. They want to know what the future looks like. And the problem is that most clinics don't track inquiries. And so that makes it really difficult for any marketer to connect the dots between their efforts to generate leads and to generate sales for the practice. And this is a key problem. And that's one of the reasons why often, there's a bit of a disagreement sometimes as to who's doing the right work, right? The marketers will say, well, you're not closing my leads. And the practices are saying, well, you're not giving me good leads, right? So wouldn't it be lovely to have a situation where you knew what was working instead of just kind of guessing if it was working or not? So perhaps Hottie can help us with this. So can you give us visibility on what's working and how my practice will perform in the future? And the reality is, yes, if you can connect all of the inquiries into one system, and if you can follow those inquiries through all the way to become patients, well, yeah, you can attribute patients to marketing sources. You can know which patients came from Google Ads, which patients came from Facebook ads. And knowing that is huge, because it's not just about, well, I've got a bunch of patients, a bunch of leads who came from these sources, but these patients came from here too. You can send your staff messages to remind them to track appointment outcomes. So for example, the doctor would get a message from the system that says, what happened to this patient? Did they book? Did they not book? Did they have surgery? Did they not have surgery? And all the doctor has to do is just click a button, click a link, and boom, it tells the system, this is what happened. So it tracks it all the way. And it reminds people to track. And can also tell you how much money you can expect to make in the next few months, because if it knows what your lead pipeline looks like, what your sales pipeline looks like, then it's able to predict, well, based on all these leads, this is how much money you should expect to make based on the expected conversion rates. You can also evaluate your sales performance both quantitatively and qualitatively. So it can record your calls, and it can determine how you're doing on those calls based on, a protocol analysis to determine what's being said on the calls. Are they saying the right message? And also it can compare different sales reps to different other people so that you can see whether or not who's actually doing really, really well. So maybe that's somebody you want to make sure is always answering calls. And of course, like I said.
Rod, I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but so does it mean that this virtual assistant also works as a CRM system?
Yeah, exactly.
So track and manage the sales pipeline, the sales funnel.
Exactly right. So because it's connected to the website and connected to all your marketing campaigns and connected to Facebook and connected to Google My Business, because it's connected to all these things, it can then take all of that information of source and track that patient all the way through from the moment they inquire to the moment they actually have their last post-op. And what that enables you to do is really, really evaluate what's working and what isn't. Yeah. So
okay, got it.
So, the doctor at this point might say, Hottie, do you ever sleep? And the reality is that, that's the future of robotics and AI, is the fact that, no, and they're never late. It's a perfect employee, right? They work evenings and weekends. They don't need breaks. They don't need a vacation. They never call in sick. They stay on script. They say what you're going to tell them to do. They never forget what they've been taught. How many times have we noticed that? And I don't take up any space, and I don't need any special equipment, and you can cut your expenses too. And I think that's a question, is like, how on earth could you also cut expenses? And the reality is if you have one system that is well priced, you can effectively cancel your email marketing software, your SMS marketing software, your call tracking software, surveys and forms that you might pay for, web chatbot that you're paying for, online booking software, that CRM that you hardly ever use because it's too challenging and too difficult, and it doesn't work for you. Tracking and analytics software, if you pay for that, and reputation management software, which is really expensive. So, if it can save all that and it's GDPR and HIPAA compliant, well, is there anything that you can't do is the next logical question, right? So the reality is that, it just definitely needs Wi-Fi. That's the key thing, right? As long as it's got Wi-Fi, it can work. So, that's a prerequisite. So, yeah. So, that pretty much brings us to the end of the presentation before we get to questions. So I just want to summarize that in 2022, your website needs to qualify your inquiries within 5 minutes. It needs to get into your increased mobile phones. It needs to combine the communication streams. easily book appointments online, reduce your no-show rates, relieve your staff of repetitive tasks that they don't want to do, and get you online reviews and help you evaluate business performance and predict your revenue, so that instead of just focusing on one aspect of the patient value journey, you're focusing on the whole thing. You get the whole journey covered. And that reduces any kind of friction between marketing, sales, clinical, operations. Everybody works together, which is, exactly what I think most people want to do, is they want to focus on the whole journey and, just ensure that, happy clients stay with their agencies. And, that's the thing. It's like, we know that there's good partnerships out there. We just want them to continue. And we think that this kind of technology is going to make the big difference to really determine who's right for each other. Again, it's about delivering patients. That's what the job of all of this is about. It's creating happy, successful patients. And if you can do that with technology like this, then that's where you want to go. That's the direction you want to head. And that's what takes us to questions. So that's where we.
Awesome. We have a couple of questions here. And the first question, I think it's answered right here on this slide, is how can I meet Hottie? How can I get access to Hottie?
Yeah, that's a great question. Just so you know, I put in this URL. It's real. You can type it in. It's pretty easy. liveseysolar.com/Hottie. Just so you know, everybody, Hottie is real. Okay. I know I've been talking a lot about the future.
Not a concept.
The internet. No, it's not a concept, and it's a real thing. And, it's in beta at the moment. And we have a few spots available for innovative clinics who want to participate in this beta. And, if you want to be among the first clinics to have access to this kind of technology, of course it's beta, right? So that means it's not commercially available yet. It's something that, we want to work with eye surgeons. We want to work with practice managers to really understand how to make the software work for them. It's an amazing piece of technology, but it's only going to be super valuable when you've got your own script on it, if that makes sense, your own personality. So there's the link, and if you guys are interested in registering your interest, just pop in your details in the forum on that page.
So the script can be personalized according to each practice. Is that what you're saying?
Well, the nice thing about it, and I don't want to overshadow this, is that there's actually, we've been, creating scripts and emails and letters for the last 20 years. And we figured out which ones are the best ones, right? Which ones perform the best. And what we've done is we've put all of this material into Hottie, so that when you buy Hottie, or when you decide that you want to use Hottie for your practice, you're going to get the SMSs, you're going to get the emails, you're going to get the follow-up sequences with all the material. Definitely, you have to adapt it, right? And it all is adaptable. And the nice thing about it is we make it very simple, but it's all there already, and including all the follow-up sequences and all the workflows that I've been discussing throughout this entire presentation. It's all there, and it's just waiting to get used and sampled.
Awesome. Rod, we have another great question here. To use Hottie, does the website need to be through Livesey Solar? Is there a limitation of who is hosting the website, or who is the website designer? Or does Hottie work with any website?
Yeah, I wish I could say yes, only with Livesey Solar. No, the answer is no. So you can have, maybe I should change my business model. No, but in reality,
make it available for all websites.
Exactly. Yeah. No. Listen, if you have a website that you can put some scripts onto, a form, a web chat bot, things like that, and this material, this software works great with WordPress. So let's put it to that. If you have WordPress, it's going to work. Okay. And it's not even limited to WordPress. There are other platforms in which it can work. But yeah, it doesn't have to be a Livesey Solar website. And the other thing too, I should also mention, is I know without a doubt, because I was on previous webinars, that you guys have been presenting as a marketer, interested in knowing what's going on in marketing by my peers and colleagues. If you're a marketer and if you want to get access to this software for your practice, for the practices that you represent, hey, that's cool. We're all over that. We're not going to control it and make no, it's only us. We think it's cool, because the thing is that we definitely want people to use this system to improve their practice. And whether they're working with other marketing agencies or with us, I mean, obviously we think you should work with us, but we can't be everywhere, right? And we're also super, super selective who we work with. So, on a service level. So, Hottie is, definitely available. If other marketers out there, if you want to talk, yeah, because this is going to help you. This is going to really, really improve your results.
We have another great question here. Is Hottie single? Sounds like the girl our practice has been searching for.
I gotta say, she's pretty cute. I'm not gonna lie. Look at those green eyes, right? You can get lost in them. Is Hottie single? Yes, she is single. Single. We definitely would not allow Hottie to get married at this stage. I'm sorry, but she's too young. It's going to take a while for her to find the right mate, I think. So, we're going to guide her and ensure that she waits.
Yeah. And Rod, if you could summarize Hottie in one word, like, is she an app? Is she a plug-in? Is she a chatbot? Like, who is Hottie?
Best friend. I want you to think of it this way. Like, obviously Hottie is not going to, I want you to think about it like an employee. That's actually the way I see it, is that, obviously Hottie is not a real person, right? And Hottie's never going to replace a real person. But what Hottie's going to do is it's artificial intelligence, it's AI that is going to allow for your employees and the rest of your team to do everything that they do best and do it more often, because nobody wants to do the stuff that AI can do anymore, right? This is the future. And I think the key thing is to work collectively with AI to ensure that we can get the best partnership with it. If you can't beat it, join it, right? So, I think that's the way it works. And I would say an AI employee really is the way to think about it.
That it's artificial intelligence. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, 2 words.
Yes, that's okay. But in terms of installing it, would work as a plug-in, more or less.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of thinking about it. It's like, it's software, it's an application. It gets in. We can even create web pages with Hottie. So, for example, we could create a landing page with Hottie that actually is built right there. So, for example, if you have a clunky website that you can't, or maybe if you have just a really small website and you don't want to, pay money to extend it, you can create a landing page in Hottie and have everything right there, and it can look and feel just like your brand, but it has the form and the chatbot and everything there. So it creates this really quick deployment ability without having to go to a website designer to help you out, right? So yeah, it's another, it's so many things. It's really hard to summarize.
Yeah. And I think, you said that Hottie is young, but she is carrying over 20 years of experience on how to handle these patient inquiries. With tested and proven communication, text messages or emails.
Honestly, I wish I had Hottie 20 years ago, because I think the laser refractive business would be even bigger than it is today if we had access to these tools. 20 years ago, my goodness, yeah. So yeah, the beauty of Hottie is that the technology has arrived to be able to make use of the wisdom that's in people to execute on a more routine, repetitive, and unstoppable basis. Like, it just keeps going until you tell it, okay, that's enough. And yeah, it never tires. So yeah, it's the perfect combination of wisdom, intelligence, and action.
Very good. Great. Thank you, Rod. Thank you so much for this very inspiring masterclass today. We have Ziad back with us. Ziad has some words to share.
Yeah, first of all, I would like to thank you both. That was really informative, very inspiring. And I want to remind our audience that they can still watch a recorded session for this webinar and even share it with any interested colleagues. And they can register on the same landing page. And we have 3 different time slots or dates for this recorded session. So please do not hesitate. Well, Marsley, thank you very much for today. We are just on time. We don't want to keep our audience busy more than that. Again, thank you for taking the time and for staying awake, because now you're in Australia. And for everybody here with us on the call, I would like to say stay tuned for more masterclasses for the period to come. We will send you the registration and information in due time. So everybody, thank you, stay in touch, and goodbye.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.